This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Electricast.
He flirts with some broads, but he doesn't really mean it. He doesn't really want to get involved. I think it's the darkness that's exciting to him. I don't think he's like, oh, good, now we're going to, make a home. I don't think he's interested in anything like that.
I feel like she must have been feeling just powerful, which is something else I liked about this film, was like the gender roles, and the femme fatale in general is just about like how men are powerless in the face of a sexy, strong woman.
Welcome to episode 306 of Film Generations, where two guys from the 20th century select a classic movie to show a panel of young film lovers and see if it still plays for today's generation. I'm Mark Netter. I'm an instructor at the Los Angeles Film School, co-founder and CEO of Electricast Media, and a sometime filmmaker.
I'm David Taussig, and before I made my first film in 1988, I ran into Billy Wilder in an elevator in Beverly Hills. And that's how I knew that I really was in Los Angeles.
Wow, that's an incredible story.
Nice.
I am Olive Goldberg, and I am a recent graduate from Emerson College and an aspiring filmmaker living in New York.
Hi, I'm Sonia Howell. I'm a senior at George Washington University studying political communications, and I'm an editor for Film Generations.
Hi, I'm Brennan Guntang, a recent graduate at East Carolina University, and I am an aspiring screenwriter and director.
This episode, our movie opens in inky black and white at night as a car careens recklessly through the Los Angeles streets. The driver is Walter Neff, a top insurance salesman who staggers into his office with a small but growing bullet hole-sized stain bleeding through the shoulder of his sports jacket. He picks up a dictaphone and begins recording his confession. We flash back to the fateful day when Walter walks into a client's upscale home to sell a policy renewal, but ends up falling for the blonde wife and her seductive ankle bracelet. Together, Walter and his adulterous lover devise a plan to murder her husband and trick the insurance company into paying Phyllis twice the usual death benefit per a little-known policy feature called Double Indemnity. So begins a seminal film noir classic, often credited as kicking off the genre. Twisted tales of doomed men and femme fatales told in shadowy cinematography with cynical narration and snappy patter. With a screenplay by director Billy Wilder and legendary detective fiction writer Raymond Chandler from the novel by James M. Cain, starring Fred McMurray and Barbara Stanwyck as the ill-fated lovers and Edward G. Robinson as the claims investigator who threatens their plans. Double Indemnity lit up more than just movie screens in 1944 with its bold depiction of moral and sexual corruption that went hard against the existing Hollywood production code, earning 7 Academy Award nominations and a place in film history along the way. However, after so many other films, even today, stealing from this movie, does it still hit our panos like a shot from a .45, or do they sentence Double Indemnity to the gas chamber? Let's find out. First question, as always, aside from myself and David, was this everyone's first time seeing Double Indemnity?
Yes.
Yeah, for me it was, for sure.
Wow.
I had absolutely heard about it. My grandparents love this film. They are both in their 90s. I honestly am excited to talk to them more about it and hear how it hit them being alive during the times it was made. I have a thing with these old movies where on my first watch, it takes me a second, and then once I digest it and discuss it and put it in the context, I'm like, okay, I get it. So I experienced that with this film. Little slow, can't deny that I was a little bored at first, but it picked up really nicely, and I really enjoyed how the plot progressed, and I thought it was quite spicy for the time that it is in, and very interesting doing research afterwards, how this genre reflects the times that it was made in this film specifically. So I liked it.
I want to get into more detail about whether the themes are still relevant today, but let's go to Sonia. Had you ever heard anything about it before?
I had not. And so I did a little bit of research before I watched it, because I am a spoilers person. Like, I do like to get spoilers before I see something. And I thought it was really good. This was my first time ever hearing it. Yeah, I liked it as well. So,
Brendan, what about you?
So I was already kind of familiar with Billy Wilder. I had seen Sunset Boulevard in school, and when it came to Double Indemnity, we kind of glanced over it, but it was like, oh, he also, made Double Indemnity, which was a big deal, and this definitely was my first time watching it, and I really enjoyed it. I had a good time with it.
David, not your first time watching it.
No, not my first time. I probably saw it in the mid-'70s. And at that point, the film was over 30 years old. I was a teenager. I'm watching some really old movie. And of course, now it's so much older. But, thinking about how I thought of it then, it gives me sympathy for people who think now that something like Fight Club is a really old movie. Because to me, it seems like not that old, because it came out halfway through my life. I took it as, this is like a seminal film noir. Like, yeah, what a classic. Great. Look how even back then he did all the chiaroscuro lighting and all that, and the snappy dialogue. I loved it. But seeing it this time, I had a really different reaction. I was really struck not by how seminal and how, true to the genre it is. I was struck by how odd it is in a lot of ways. It's not like other film noirs. So many films have come out trying to be this. They're the same thing. There's the femme fatale, the guy who falls for her, and he heads to his doom. I mean, that film has been remade 100 times. But this film is not really that film that all the others are imitating. This film is very peculiar. I don't buy that they're in love with each other, and I don't think they're even meant to be in love with each other. And that undercuts right off what the whole cliche is supposed to be, which I found really interesting.
Okay, I can't wait to get into that too, because I've spent a lot of time trying to think about why this is still a classic, and maybe you guys will have answers for me on this, why people are still watching it. The first time I saw Double Indemnity, it was not this Double Indemnity. There was a remake that was done as a made-for-TV movie back in the 1970s. Same name, roughly the same script, except they cut out some of the best lines. It was kind of weird. Back in those days, we only had 3 networks that we watched, and ABC had pioneered having an hour-and-a-half long movie during the week, a little less with commercials, right? So I watched this version of Double Indemnity with an actor you guys might not know, but named Richard Crenna as the Walter Neff character, which is really interesting in regard to a movie we're going to talk about next episode. And I really liked it. I was like, this is dark. Is this how adults really are? I must have been 13 years old at the time or something. And now when I go onto IMDb and I read about it, everyone's like, terrible movie, awful version. But it was my gateway drug to Double Indemnity. So I think when I finally got to college, I saw it. And I didn't think the actors were particularly sexy. Even the Phyllis thing, walking down the stairs, I get the indication of sexiness and how it might have been sexy at the time. I mean, it doesn't completely do it for me. I thought the wig was a little weird and all that. But, it is a really tight story. One of the things that keeps it going for me is the story's like a mousetrap. There's just nothing extra. There's nothing missing. I don't know. To me, that's kind of what works.
It was dark. It has these dark themes. It has, at the time, immoral experiences. It has violence. It has adultery. It has sexual, innuendos throughout. And I think that's part of why I enjoy it a lot. Another thing that I really enjoyed is that it is inspired by a novel. If a book has a film adaptation, I love comparing the two. That's just a personal thing that I like to do. And that was another rabbit hole that kind of made me further enjoy it, because I like the differences that were made compared to the book.
Yeah, and just about the author, James M. Cain, of the book, he also wrote a book called Postman Always Rings Twice that's been made into a movie back in the 40s and then in 1980-81 by the father of the co-founder of Electricast, Bob Rafelson, my partner Peter's father. And his books are always great. I just read Butterfly, which is another lesser-known James M. Cain book made into a movie once, which has a really messed-up incest theme in its noir.
Ew.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Could not stop turning pages.
Like Chinatown, right?
Yeah, like Chinatown. That's a good one.
It was pretty engaging. Again, like, to start, I was like, this is a lot of talk about insurance. I can't say that I was engaged like the whole time. But after like the 40-minute mark, I was in it. I was invested in it. And it did a really smart job of moving forward in a way that like wasn't predictable. I feel like I've seen versions of this many times, but I still was not like, oh, I know what's going to happen. So in that sense, it kept me engaged.
I also liked the plot, but I really liked the concept of like the morally gray decisions, especially like for the time, like, you know, in the 1940s. I don't feel like women really had a decision on like how to make their own money and things like that. So like it was probably very revolutionary at the time to like have someone make such a morally gray decision, you know, like wanting to kill her husband, but also not kill her husband. I don't know, like, where do you really fall in that?
Well, that brings me to a question. Like, were you sympathetic to Phyllis at all?
In the beginning, I was. In the beginning, I was like, okay, I could kind of see how she, like, has gotten herself into a situation, and this guy is, like, horrible, and, you know, he's not that much older than her, so, like, she can't just wait for him to die, you know? Like, she's gonna have to, like, stay with him forever. And so, you know, like, I was like,
or give death a little nudge.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, I feel bad. But then once I had found out about the previous Mrs. Diedrichson, I was like, okay, this is a little weird. And then also her demeanor after he was killed, or like the shot of her sitting in the car, like while he's being strangled, she has no feelings towards him.
What do you think she's feeling at that moment? Because the camera, just like you said, it frames out the murder, which you couldn't have shown at the time.
Yeah.
But you hear it, and you know Walter's in the back seat strangling her husband. And then she has this look on her face that's kind of epic. People talk about it, but what do you think she's feeling?
Probably some sort of satisfaction. I honestly can't really identify with it because I would be horrified. But like, I'd be completely horrified. But I feel like any normal person would be sick to their stomach. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're having to shove a dead person into the back of your car and then just drive around with him. I was like, okay, these people are crazy, like how they can stomach this.
I was going to ask you the question, do you think your husband deserved it?
I mean, because he kind of was an asshole. That was the thing. Like, he was an asshole. So I don't know if he deserved to die that way. I don't know if it was that way. I feel like
I know that it came up that she couldn't for whatever reason, but like divorce seems more than reasonable.
Yeah.
But then she doesn't get the money.
True. Yeah, she doesn't get that double indemnity payment.
I feel like she must have been feeling just powerful, which is something else I liked about this film, was like the gender roles, and the femme fatale in general is just about like how men are powerless in the face of a sexy, strong woman.
Well, let me ask the question. Does anyone think that look on her face is that she's really turned on?
Yeah. That was my first thought. I was like, she's getting off on this.
Unlike Sonia, Phyllis finds it to be foreplay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, let me ask a question about Walter. Did you guys empathize at all with Walter?
I kind of felt like he was gullible. I was like, okay, you are really willing to ruin your life over one woman? Like, this is not...
Yeah.
And he got on board so quickly and was like, okay, we're just going to kill him. That's it. I'll help you. Like, what?
Well, David, this is kind of goes to your question about whether they're in love.
Yeah. So I think the most interesting thing about the movie actually is the characters. And it sneaks up on you because the first couple of times I saw it, I thought I was interested in the story. The characters were working on me in a more subconscious way. And then this time, I probably haven't seen it in 30 years. I'm a lot older now. And I'm looking at this film and going, who is this guy? This guy isn't doing this because he's in love with her. He's not doing this just to get some nookie. He's got a serious existential hole in his life that he's trying to fill somehow. So he's an insurance guy. Edward G. Robinson is this big father figure for him, clearly. I mean, if there's any love affair in the movie, it's between Fred MacMurray and Edward G. Robinson. They tell each other that they love each other, and they're the only people that do love each other in the movie. I mean, in a way. I mean, maybe they don't even love each other either, but at least there's something going on between the two of them. It's kind of like a father-son thing. But, Edward G. Robinson says, hey, come in, I'm going to make you the head of the department. And MacMurray's like, I don't think so. He's like, well, why not? I don't know. I'm kind of happy just being a salesman. I don't really want to. You cannot understand, he's not ambitious. And yet at the same time, he's killing some guy to get some money, but he doesn't want to take the raise. There's something very strange going on here.
You think he's just like bored?
Yes, I think he's bored. That's right. He's an insurance salesman. He's really bored. He's not doing anything with his life that excites him. And he's very upfront about that from the beginning. He's cynical about everything.
He goes home, drinks a beer. That's his fun night.
He flirts with some broads, but he doesn't really mean it. He doesn't really want to get involved. Even with Phyllis, he's intrigued by her, but I think it's the darkness that's exciting to him. I don't think he's like, oh, good, now we're going to, make a home. I don't think he's interested in anything like that.
Yeah, knock out a couple kids.
No.
I don't think that's in their future.
No.
It just doesn't seem worth it. Like, potentially going away forever for murder or, being killed in the process.
Or
I don't
feasible,
understand
too.
his motivation to risk all of that.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the film, he's accepted his fate already, which is so interesting. I mean, that's why I did sympathize with him, because from the very beginning, he's like, I fucked up. I did a terrible thing, and I'm going to die for it, and I deserve it. But here's my confession. And if somebody starts out like that, what is there to hate about? I mean, I guess you can hate him for being weak. But the first thing he tells you is, yeah, I'm weak. I find that sympathetic.
It's so funny. I wonder if the salesman thing is kind of the key, right? He's got a knack for sales. He's the best salesman at the agency. And when he's flirting with Phyllis, he's just trying to close a deal? He doesn't walk out of there hooked on her the first time.
He's in serious need of amusement. And, he's definitely amused by her. One of my favorite lines is, she shows up in a towel, right? He shows up to sell her husband insurance. And then this beautiful broad shows up dressed only in a towel. And he says, I couldn't wait to see her again without that terrible staircase between us. He can't say towel because it's 1944, but
I miss that. It's funny.
For sure.
So what about the fact that he comes up with this plan? Like, he's even been thinking about it for a while, right? He talks about how he's been planning it. I mean, is that the key to his character, that he just wants to be clever about something?
Yeah, when they first meet, it kind of starts out as a sale, but then they meet more and more, and then suddenly, now he's hinting at, oh, we could get away with killing your husband and also getting this great amount of insurance money from killing him. It's like he's thought of this. He's 100% thought of it, and he's figured out a way to word it.
When she pitches him the idea, she says double indemnity insurance, and he says, oh, forget it, because right away he's onto the fact that she wants to kill her husband. The film makes him out to be a bit of a dupe, but he's not dumb. I mean, he knows what she's up to before she even says it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I felt like he was smart, but he's not that smart. Like, I kind of left the movie feeling like, okay.
Like so many men.
Yes.
Yeah.
He did not think this through.
No.
For our young panelists, this is the first time you've ever seen Edward G. Robinson in a performance?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
David, can you describe what Eddie G. meant to us growing up?
Sure. Well, first of all, he played Little Caesar. Senior. Yeah. So
early talkie gangster movie, 1931, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm Rico. I'm the head of the rackets.
But that's what he was known for, and everyone would do that impression. It was so easy.
Oh, yeah. Throughout college, my friends and I, we'd always imitate Eddie G. at some point.
So once you start, you can't stop. But the fact is, he's a really amazing actor. He is in Soylent Green. He does a great performance in that. He did a lot of Shakespeare. He's a fantastic actor. I think he's wonderful in this movie.
And he was kind of a leading man up until this, and this was the first time he took a supporting role.
Right. Also, kind of an interesting connection with Wilder. He was Jewish. His real name is, I think, Emanuel Goldenberg. Had to change his name when he became an actor because it was the 30s. Billy Wilder's entire family was killed in the Holocaust, and then he came to the United States. His films are very cynical, and he has a very cynical view of human nature, which I think shows up in this movie too. Easy to understand given his recent experience during World War II. So.
When you think about it, there's not that many characters in the movie. There's Walter, there's Phyllis, there's Keyes, there's Lola, there's Nino, there's the insurance president, the guy Jackson, who's on the back of the train when McMurray first gets there. Did you guys find yourself drawn to any of these characters in particular?
I was very intrigued by the dynamic between Lola and Walter. I don't know if that's exactly the answer to this question, but...
It's interesting.
Yeah. I would love to hear other people's thoughts about that, especially related to what we were talking about him and his motivation.
Lola is the daughter of the husband, but she's not Phyllis's daughter because, as we find out, Phyllis has taken care of the mom back in the past. Why do you think Neff is so nice to Lola?
Does he feel guilty?
Yeah, I was going to say that. Like, I feel like it has to be guilt, but also... I know she was like 16 in the movie, but like I feel like he was weirdly attracted to her also and like intrigued by her life, like asking her about Nino and like just weirdly too interested in her, if that makes sense.
I definitely felt that too. The way they would communicate with each other, it seemed a little too much like how he was acting with Ruth to begin with, you know? It definitely like, this is weird, you know?
Blizzard Entertainment presents Midnight, the newest expansion for World of Warcraft. Midnight calls every hero home to Azeroth. All paths lead to this moment. Xalatath rises, the Void follows, and the Sunwell stands in peril. Raiders, explorers, storytellers, newcomers, and legends alike. This is your world, your story, your moment. Because Azeroth is home, and home is always worth fighting for. Available now at worldofwarcraft.com.
For everybody, do you feel like the framing with Walter telling the story and all that, do you think that adds to the story? Do you think it could have been told without it? Does it give you more feeling for him? Like, how do you think it works for you?
It definitely gave me some more sympathy for him because I feel like throughout the whole story, he's trying to like own up to what he did. Because after the murder, I kind of felt like he was a monster a little bit. And then like being friends with Lola or having this weird relationship with her, I was like, okay, this guy is not a good person as he claims to be. And I feel like once he was like actually able to fess up at the end, it made me feel more sympathy towards his situation.
I agree, and I think him narrating tied in really well with the end. Like, that was the ending. I don't know what the ending would have been if he hadn't been doing that throughout. I don't think it was like necessary to the plot as the story was being told, but I like what it did for you as his character was developing.
Kind of cements the relationship with Keyes at the very end and what's being lost there.
Yeah.
Did anyone have any favorite scenes in the movie? Any ones that stuck out to you?
Probably when Keyes is like first initially figuring out that it could actually be foul play, and now Walter's hearing this and he's like freaking out like to himself kind of that like, oh, my like good friend here at the office could be on to us.
That happens at Walter's apartment, right?
Yeah. I was gonna say that was probably my favorite, with like hiding her in the door, and that was pretty clever.
Yeah.
Olive, were you rooting for Phyllis to be found out or for her to get away with not being seen?
I was rooting for her to not be seen.
So how messed up are we?
Yeah. Well, that's something I was gonna bring up, because I do like when a film it's this weird thing where you're like rooting for a character that you don't morally agree with or respect or like even, but because they're the protagonist, you're kind of on their side.
There is a concept in storytelling called center of good. And the idea is if you have a bunch of bad characters, whichever one seems the least bad, we kind of glom onto.
Right.
But also that situation of you're hiding something and you're about to get caught. I mean, every kid has experienced that, and you want to get away with it. You don't want to get in trouble with your parents or whoever, your teacher, whatever it is, the cops. You just can't help but sympathize with somebody who's sneaking around doing something and might get caught. It's suspenseful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think happened in Walter's apartment between that scene and then when you see him smoking on the couch?
What do you think?
Well,
I think that's the part that the production code didn't allow them to show at the time.
yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That and them, kissing in his apartment, and then suddenly it changes to the next day, and now they're at the office, and it's like, oh, I wonder what could have happened.
Right. Is that the only time they have sex? Is it like once and they're done?
I think so.
That's what
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then suddenly now she has another guy coming over to try to kill Lola and eventually try to get the money from that. And it's like, whoa. Now he's getting suspicious of that. And it's like,
Nino, boyfriend of the year,
yeah,
right?
Nino. Yeah, boyfriend of the year, for real. and then leaves for a nickel or a dime to go call Lola at the end. It's like,
That was a nickel back then.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I think David and I remember dimes for making a phone call.
Yeah.
Ugh, amazing.
Penny candy. I remember penny candy.
I remember, Bazooka,
All right,
Bazooka
now
Joe for a penny.
that's the old man hour. Okay.
Let me kind of go deeper on this. I mean, there is clearly an attraction that's being depicted, and there is something torrid. It may not be love. It may be, as David feels, it might be something else going on. But even though it's kind of dated in some way, it's the era, right? Did you relate at all to the sexual attraction between them? How'd you feel about that kind of depiction?
I've seen it done so much more intensely, graphically, passionately. It's just like I can't connect to it, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The femme fatale character is something that I've definitely talked about a lot, like in my classes, like about gender and stuff like that. And I kind of felt like it was a very misogynistic point of view of women, because like the assumption is that women are just like these masterminds of men, and like that they don't have their own motives behind things. I think it kind of is like infantilizing a little bit of men to like think that like women are just controlling every single thing that they're doing.
I see it both ways. I see it as both sexist and I guess sort of like empowerment at the time. I don't know. I mean, when the films are being made by men, it's probably more sexist, but from a female's perspective as the like femme fatale, I think she would feel like I'm a bad bitch. I've got the power. I've got the men wrapped around my finger. But we're also more than that.
Yeah, like I do think that there is power in it. You're right about how it's written, right? Like if it's written by a woman, you can tell, because like it's not just like, I feel like in this movie, like I liked it, right? I liked the movie. I thought it was very good, but it was interesting because she's a damsel in distress, but also like this femme fatale character, like she's like helpless, but also is controlling, which I think is like probably the only form of power that you had at the time.
Right.
You know, there was no power, but yeah, I definitely agree that like it's how you frame it, you know?
Obviously, she's not completely innocent because she's in this conspiracy, but Walter kind of brings it up to her. But when did you start to realize that maybe there was more to her than you thought on the devil side?
I think for me, it was when Lola was talking about her mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like,
It's so
this isn't just like she hates her husband. She's been doing this.
A long-term plan.
Yeah.
Well, there's a really interesting moment at the end where Walter and Phyllis basically are setting each other up. Walter has called the cops. Phyllis has hidden a gun under the couch cushion. Walter comes in and basically says, "You're going upriver, baby. I'm not taking the fall for this." She pulls out the gun. She shoots him. She doesn't kill him yet. That's the shoulder wound. And I'm sorry if this is spoilers for a movie that's now 81 years old, but we're going to go with it. But she can't shoot him again. And she actually sees something that she hasn't seen before in him or herself. So I guess my question is, do you think Phyllis really fell in love with Walter at the end, or what was it that was causing her to hesitate and not finish the job?
Did she get a glimpse of herself in prison for murder? Perhaps.
Yeah.
I think she was going down anyway. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, multiple murders at that, because they would have gotten her for her husband, his first wife, like, they would have
True.
thrown the book at her, for sure.
I just don't feel like she loved him, but maybe.
But do you think she...
Yeah,
I mean,
that doesn't feel like a very true moment. I didn't feel set up for the idea like, oh, suddenly she's fallen in love. That doesn't ring true. I mean, if she's being sincere, like she's having some feeling that's stopping her from killing him, it's that she's, again, been looking for something. Maybe she wants to be a human being. So she's unable to quite cross that line because she's killed these other people before, but maybe she had some reason to hate them. She's really got no reason to hate Walter. So maybe she can't quite cross that line of shooting a guy where she can't even pretend that he did something to deserve it.
do they ever have a line about we're both rotten? Does she ever say that? I can't remember if that's this movie or another noir movie that I've seen.
It sounds like Jessica Rabbit.
I'm just drawn that way. No, my theory is that she's basically just killed the only other person that she can relate to at all. That they're both bad. And she's thinking like, oh, this is the only person who like is really just as corrupt as I am. You really get me.
Yeah, and also he's been her partner in crime, so like she would be killing her partner.
Yeah, maybe she feels she'll be lonely if she kills him.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the scene when Walter is finally on the train? He's been covering his face with the hat, and he goes out to the caboose, and there's that guy Jackson there. And then later Jackson shows up in the insurance office.
I knew the plan was over as soon as that guy was out there on the back of the train. Like, I was like, oh, this is not going to work. Because once there's a witness, and then, like, he didn't even just see him, they had an extended conversation. So he's going to remember, like, everything. And he was acting weird. He had his back turned towards him. I was like, this is not going to work at all.
Yeah, you have a witness. You're going to get caught now.
Surprisingly, that's not what brings him down, though.
Yeah, I know.
Even though he's acting all sus.
Yeah, true.
I know. He has the worst poker face. I was thinking that, like, the whole time. You look so guilty the entire time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the crazy thing is Fred MacMurray was known as a comic actor and a saxophone player before this. This is his first dramatic role. And David and I grew up watching reruns of his half-hour sitcom from the 50s, My Three Sons.
Oh my God, I told my dad I was doing this podcast, and he went all into My Three Sons.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
I've never seen it, so say more.
You've missed so much.
I don't know that there's much more to be said. It's basically, he's a widower raising three boys in black and white. I think they got to color by the end of the series. And occasionally he fell for another woman. And there was like an older guy living with them, Uncle, what's his name?
Uncle Charlie?
Played by another great 40s actor.
Yeah, it's William Demarest. He's in a lot of Preston Sturges movies.
How'd you guys feel about the depiction of the city of Los Angeles? Did it play into the movie, or did you feel like it could have been anywhere?
Maybe if I rewatched it, I could pay more attention, but honestly, I didn't notice it that much, which I feel bad saying since I grew up there, and I always like seeing old Los Angeles.
I actually like the part about it being in Los Angeles, because I feel like now I don't see like a lot of movies that are like even placed in LA anymore. The part with Lola and Walter at the Hollywood Bowl, like I liked seeing that.
That
Was
was
the best
cool.
shot.
That
My
was
favorite
really
shot.
cool. And yeah, just them like talking all about California and like Palo Alto and like Stanford. I thought it was just like a cool part of the story.
Yeah, I got that Raymond Chandler feeling from seeing old LA.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. Did anything stand out to you guys as far as favorite lines in the movie? I don't know how quotable this is compared to some of the other ones we've seen.
I really appreciated how they censored, a lot of the risque dialogue, sort of to divert it more towards like double entendres. And when Walter and Phyllis first meet, it's just this back and forth of double entendre after double entendre reference to,
Right.
for like an entire scene. If they made Double Indemnity nowadays, I don't think they would censor it that way. So,
No, they would lean way into it.
That's what I'm saying.
Is it classier the way they did it back then? Now would it be like more like rude?
No, I think it's very classy.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a text that's like WYD.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you up. Yeah.
Yeah, you up. Yeah.
1 a.m. booty call.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the censorship did, force people to be creative and to come up with creative solutions.
What is the line? She says, "Hey there, you're going too fast. There's a 45-hour speed limit in this state." He goes, "How fast do you think I was going?" She goes, 90 miles an hour. He goes,
Yeah.
"What if you pulled me over?" She goes, "What if I wrapped you across the knuckles?" And he says, "What if I put my head on your shoulder for sympathy?" And she said, "What if you put your head on my husband's shoulder?" And he goes, "That tears it."
Yeah.
His fantasy bubble got burst.
I used to like the scene with Edward G. Robinson talking about the little man in his stomach.
Oh, yeah.
And you knew kind of that's how they're going to get caught. That little man in Edward G. Robinson's stomach is going to be the one that ruins the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Was there anything that stood out to you visually about the movie?
I did like the scene at the Hollywood Bowl. I thought that was really cool. And when the car wouldn't turn on after they left him there on the tracks, like I thought that was like such a cool scene of like, okay, we're not saying anything, but we're like freaking out right now.
The shot that stood out to me the most was the one with the opening credits. That man with the crutch walking towards the camera. And it's like all in shadow. He's a silhouette. I thought that was really strong. Reading about the film, I guess they used some chiaroscuro lighting, the Venetian blinds and all that. That's become such a common technique. It's like in every drama now. But apparently people noticed that, not because it hadn't been done before, but because this is like a straight Hollywood studio, picture. And they were using these kind of German expressionist lighting techniques, which became the staple of film noir after that.
That reminded me of a scene that I also really liked where she is turning out the lights and like hiding the gun under the sofa. And in my research later, I was watching a video of made a point about how her home itself gets progressively darker throughout the film, which I thought was really interesting. And then that scene is like the peak of it when she's turning off all the lights. With the technology, I was very impressed by like how well I could see her placing the gun in such low light.
Yeah, I mean, this has been restored too, I think, a few times. I mean, it's gorgeous.
That cinematographer, John Snides, he's like an early Gordon Willis, trying to shoot things in the lowest light possible and pushing it as much in the shadow as possible without the studio rejecting the footage.
And the whole Venetian blind thing is supposed to create the idea of characters being imprisoned even prior to them getting caught, or maybe they're imprisoned in their lives in some fashion or in their passions. David, you mentioned the beginning with the man on the crutch coming towards the camera. I think we're supposed to assume that's Walter. And I don't know if McMurray played the character for that shot or if it was a double.
Right, it could be McMurray, but also the guy they kill was on crutches, and he's dead. And so it feels like death is coming for you. And, that's definitely one of the messages of the film, right? That he's a doomed man. Death has already come for him, and he knows it. He's just got to tell his story before the final curtain goes down. And then we're all in that situation, right? Death is coming for all of us.
Oh, my God. The silhouette on the crutch actually comes all the way up to camera at the beginning, doesn't it? So it really kind of envelops the screen with foreshadowing.
I just want to say, now that I'm 66, I notice more that death is, eventually coming. I mean, still hopefully quite a ways off, but it feels a little closer than it used to.
Sure. It is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Death and taxes, the only things you can't escape. Right? So what did you guys come away with at the end?
That's actually something that is heavily debated between me and so I watched this with my mom, and at the end we were both discussing, like, how did it end? Did Walter die? Did the ambulance show up on time to bring him to the hospital so he can go to jail? Compared to the book that it's based on, that's also left kind of ambiguous. The end of the book has Walter and Phyllis. It's implied that they commit suicide together.
Oh, wow.
But it doesn't actually reveal it. But it implies that, and it ends very differently compared to the book. And I thought that was very interesting, and I thought that the movie leaves the audience more to like think, oh, could he have gone to jail? Could he have died right there at the doorstep with keys, giving him a cigarette?
What did everybody else think?
I left feeling satisfied, if that makes sense. Like, I was like, okay, I feel like this wrapped up nicely. Like, I was glad that Phyllis did die after the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, does everybody feel like Phyllis and Walter got what they deserved?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Olive's on the fence. No, Olive's...
I'm thinking about it. That's like a death penalty discussion.
Well, it's
that we don't
interesting.
need to get into.
The original ending of the movie was Walter going to the gas chamber, and they shot it. There's even a still from it that you can find online.
Whoa.
Wow.
And then they just realized, like, hey, it ends here. We tie up the relationship between him and Keys, which, as David said, is kind of the only real love relationship in the story.
It was like a little too close to home at the time, but I feel like that would have been a really, really impactful ending, especially as I'll get to, like, with the research I did about the way that this genre, like, reflects the time period and it being in the war. I feel like that would have been really...
You mean the gas chamber?
Mm-hmm.
We'll be right back with more Double Indemnity.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Tap the banner to learn more and get a quote at usaa.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
Experience a membership that backs what you're building with American Express Business Platinum. Enjoy complimentary access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection and a welcome offer of 200,000 points after you spend $20,000 on purchases on the card within your first 3 months of membership. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
All right, Brennan, I think you were tasked with a little bit of research on the making of the movie.
Yes. Double Indemnity was made after a decade of Billy Wilder trying to get it made. It was originally a book that was based on a real murder that took place in 1927. The circumstances of it were kind of similar. Ruth Snyder, who had her husband killed, was having an affair with a salesman. She claimed that 2 giant Italian men had broken into their apartment, killed their husband, knocked her out, and stolen all of her jewelry.
I just love the fact that in those days they blamed these things on the Italians.
James Cain, the writer of the book, was a journalist at the time, and when the murder actually happened, it was all over tabloids, it was all over the news, it was everywhere. They made Ruth and the salesman, his name was Henry, they made Ruth and Henry seem like Hollywood stars. They were huge at the time. So then Billy Wilder struggled to get rights to the book just because at the time the Hays Code existed. That was a self-censorship rule in Hollywood that regulated graphic violence, anything sexually explicit, anything deemed immoral. Billy Wilder really struggled with censors to try to get this movie made because of that subject matter. And during the writing of this, scriptwriter Raymond Chandler and Billy Wilder really fought. They really quarreled with each other during the whole production. For one thing, Raymond Chandler wasn't an experienced scriptwriter. He was a novelist before going into this. And Billy Wilder, he had written, scripts for, decades at that point. And there was a famous event that happened where Billy Wilder gave Raymond Chandler a script he had already written for Double Indemnity and was like, here, use this as a template. Use this. This is what you need to do in order to write scripts. So yeah, with all that in mind, it took about a decade for Billy Wilder actually get Double Indemnity made because of that and because of censorship and because actors didn't want to be in this movie at all.
It was too immoral.
Yeah, it was too immoral.
Yeah, I think Fred McMurray was about his 7th or 8th choice, maybe even further down the list than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sonia, what was the reception for this immoral movie, and how has that maybe changed over the years?
So it was actually highly critically acclaimed. Like, it had 7 Academy nominations, but it was snubbed for all of them at the Academy Awards that year. But you're right, it was seen as a very immoral movie. They tried to market it as like a romantic comedy, but critics really liked it at the time. There was one review that I read that I was like, oh, this is like so good. It said, Double Indemnity is the finest picture of its kind ever made, and I make that flat statement without any fear of getting indigestion later from eating my words. That was a good...
Took a stand.
Yeah. Obviously, the commercial reception wasn't super great because of the immorality of it, but it's now in the Library of Congress because it's considered like a cultural piece of America. So,
still not sure what that says about America, but yes.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
Olive, I think you did some research more about the times and the rise of this genre.
Yeah, as we've touched on throughout our discussion, film noir is very much a reflection of the historical period that it was made in. It emerged after the Great Depression and during World War II. So those are some pretty bleak times. And I know we're in bleak times now, so sometimes it's helpful for me to remember that they've existed before, because I'm like, the world is the worst. But when I think about like the 30s and 40s, that sounds pretty rough. Anyways, the genre itself very much reflected a lot of the themes and feelings that people were having in this time. Lack of control, paranoia, a lot of darkness. The genre has a quality of dark lighting, certain angles that portray this sense of uneasiness. Crime and corruption at the time were very dominant fears amongst the public, both in America and overseas. And Billy Wilder was not American. And there's also some interesting history about the embargo on American films that the Nazis placed in 1939. So what's the facts here? Is it like all of Europe didn't have access to these films? Do you know?
God, a lot of Europe really didn't have access during that time. And in fact, after the war was over, that's when they started seeing these noir films. And then you get the rise of the French New Wave kind of based on that.
Right, yeah. And I was reading about like how, as we know, it wasn't noir at the time, but like after the fact, especially non-American filmmakers watched these movies and were like, this is very different than the things that we were seeing before the war. Yeah, and then another very significant piece we've talked about is the femme fatale and how that relates to the time period where women were gaining more responsibility in society when men were off at war, and then they'd come home and sort of were like, what is this? What is my place? I think that led to this sense of like fear of women almost that is very reflected in the genre.
And imagine being a woman who, I mean, if you liked it, went and worked in a factory or something, and then the guys come home and they're like, bye-bye. Thanks for your service. And it's like, I'm with the kids again?
Right. Is that what happened?
Yeah. It was really kind of, and that's why the idea of like the woman getting power became like a femme fatale kind of thing, right? You know, what, she's earning a paycheck? That's my job. Yeah, times have changed.
Thank God.
David, tell us a little bit about director Billy Wilder,
as
a
Brennan
Hollywood
mentioned,
legend.
He really started off as a screenwriter and had a lot of success in the 30s. He wrote Bluebeard's Eighth Wife. He wrote Ninotchka, which won a lot of Oscars. Wrote Ball of Fire, directed by Howard Hawks, which is a great comedy.
Which also stars Barbara Stanwyck, the star of this one.
Yes, that's right.
So they knew each other.
Correct. Wilder grew up in what is now Poland, but at the time was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And he fled Europe when the Nazis took over to the United States to make movies, but he had made films in Austria and in Germany. And while he was in the United States, his mother and almost his entire family were killed in the Holocaust. And his films became less purely comic and more cynical, I'd say. But his directorial debut pretty much was The Major and the Minor, a comedy, and then he directed Double Indemnity. And as mentioned, Double Indemnity got snubbed for Oscars, but his next film was The Lost Weekend, a film about alcoholism, a very serious treatment of that issue at a time when drunks were mostly depicted in movies as comical characters. He wrote this film about an alcoholic who is spiraling down, apparently based somewhat on Raymond Chandler, the co-writer of Double Indemnity. And that film won the Palme d'Or and also got the Oscar for Best Picture. And that's a really rare feat. It's only happened 3 other times. So Marty did it, and then more recently Parasite and Anora managed that feat. But before then, it had only been done by The Lost Weekend. He did Sunset Boulevard, which is my personal favorite of his. He did a great film called Ace in the Hole, such a cynical movie about a journalist who's covering some miners who are trapped in a mine shaft and then decides to let them stay trapped so that he can turn it into a really, really great media story and milk it for another week.
Oh my God.
Doesn't work out well.
And it does not work out. He made 3 films all based on Broadway plays, Stalag 17, which became the TV show Hogan's Heroes later on, and Sabrina and 7 Year Itch, Marilyn Monroe. A big breakthrough for him also was Some Like It Hot, 1959. That was his first film with Jack Lemmon, an amazing actor, and the two of them formed a great partnership, made 7 films together. The Apartment is one of the best ones. In 1974, they did The Front Page together. Probably the last really fine film that Wilder made. He did make a couple of more later on as his career petered out. So he wrote about 25 films that got made. He made another 25 as writer-director. It's an incredible track record. The quality of them is high. You know, they're not all great, but they're all pretty good. They've all got something about them. I would say that until Woody Allen came along and doubled that feat, he probably had to be considered the greatest writer-director in Hollywood history. And I'd say that maybe now Woody Allen has even eclipsed that. He's done twice as many films and of similar quality, in my opinion, but maybe not everyone agrees.
And I wonder what the comparison is in terms of Oscar wins, too. I seem to recall Quentin Tarantino winning one of his Oscars for Best Original Screenplay, and he said, I think this number that I've won has only been matched by Billy Wilder.
And the two are very different. I don't want to compare them too much, but I will say they're both essentially comic writers who got more interested in the serious aspects of their characters' lives and of the dramas that they're writing. And Wilder's films are interesting for that because they're all somewhat comic and they're all quite dramatic as well. And they all have interesting characters. They all have a take on life that's very much his.
We'll be right back with our panel's recommendations and ratings for Double Indemnity.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Say hello to Alexa Plus and see how Alexa can do more for you. Need tickets to that last-minute show? Craving your favorite restaurant? Sit back, relax, and talk naturally. Alexa's on it. Alexa learns your preferences to create a personalized experience. And now, Alexa Plus is free with Prime on your Amazon devices, like Echo and Fire TV. Learn more at amazon.com/Alexa Plus.
On December 12th, Disney Plus invites you to go behind the scenes with Taylor Swift in an exclusive 6-episode docuseries.
I wanted to give something to the fans that they didn't expect. The only thing left is to close the book.
The end of an era. And don't miss Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour, the final show, featuring for the first time the Tortured Poets Department. Streaming December 12th, only on Disney Plus.
Let's do our recommendations and ratings. 4 stars. It's a film that has moved you in some way personally. You would put it on your top 25, top 50 films of all time. That's an A+. A 3.5-star movie is just a great movie, perhaps even a flawless movie, if you believe in such a thing. But maybe just hasn't touched you personally in quite the same way, and that's an A movie. 3 stars, which I think is the most interesting, is a A-. It's essentially a really interesting movie that might be flawed in some way, but doing something maybe you haven't seen before, or doing it in such a way that's pretty great. Then we get to 2.5 stars, which is B+. That basically means if you like this genre, this is a good one. 2 stars is a B-. If you like this genre, this one isn't quite that good. Then you get down to 1.5 stars is a C, 1 star is a D, Half star is an E for effort, so bad it's good, like Plan 9 from Outer Space or Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, if you know those movies. And there are no 0-star movies because, as David and I both know from having made them, just the fact that you got a movie made and released is an achievement, and you deserve at least half a star for that. Olive, since you are the veteran, I'm going to go with you first over here. Who would you recommend this movie to, if anybody, and how many stars will you commit to?
I would recommend this movie to people interested in film history and who enjoy old movies. I would not recommend it to my friends who are not film people. Rating. I'd say 3. Part of me is thinking 2.5 because this just isn't my favorite genre. And I liked what you said about, like, if you like this genre, it's a good film. But there were a lot of layers that I ended up finding very interesting. So I'm going to give it a 3.
Sonia, who would you recommend this to, if anybody, and what would your rating be?
I would definitely suggest it to someone who likes old movies as well. I would also suggest it to someone who can deal with a little bit slower movies, you know, like you're willing to be patient. And yeah, for rating, I would also give this a 3 because I did really like this movie. It surprised me. I did not think that I was going to like this, but yeah, I ended up really liking the darkness of it. And like I said, the morally gray situation of it all.
All right, Brennan.
Yeah, I'm definitely sitting along the lines of Olive and Sonia's ratings. I definitely recommend it to anyone who likes older movies and is interested in film history. Definitely to anyone who likes the genre noir. Anyone who is a fan of Billy Wilder. If you've seen Sunset Boulevard, then definitely check this one out. I also gave it my personal rating for 3 out of 4 on that one. I'm a fan of Sunset Boulevard, so I definitely really like this one a lot. Definitely check this one out.
Yeah,
David,
I think our younger panelists nailed it. It's for people who like old black and white movies, who are interested in maybe the history of film noir, or maybe have seen other Billy Wilder films and want to see some of his earlier work. I'd really recommend it to them. For me, the choice is between 3 and 3.5. I'm going to give it a 3. I think as a piece of important film history, maybe it does deserve that extra half star, but I'm going to rate it just based on the film itself. It's an enjoyable watch. I didn't find it too slow. I guess those of us who weren't raised on post-Spielberg movies maybe are used to slightly slower pace and cutting, and so don't see it as being slow. I do see it as old-fashioned, for sure, but I enjoy the kind of snappy, old-fashioned dialogue. To anybody who thinks, well, I got seen that, it's the template for all the later film noirs, and you don't really remember the film in its particulars, I'd say see it again. There's surprises in there. It's actually a very peculiar thing. It's not some generic early example of good film noir. It's more than that. It's got a peculiar sensibility from Billy Wilder that is super interesting. So if you only saw it maybe when you were younger, check it out again. I think you'll find things in there you've forgotten about.
Well, I kind of agree with everybody about recommending it to people that are interested in the genre of film noir or film history. I see these film noir lists, and very often Double Indemnity is number 1, according to whatever critic is writing the list of the best film noirs of all time. In our season 2, we did Out of the Past, and that's my favorite film noir. Like literally every year I can put it on and I'm really enjoying it. But this one I don't have quite that same affinity to, so it's definitely not a 4-star movie for me. I love the way it's shot. I like the way the characters are shot. They look so solid in the frame. I love the way LA shot that, Sonia mentioned above the Hollywood Bowl. That's not a studio shot. They really shot that out there. There's something about the characters not being glamorized. There's something a little bit grubby about it. It's not totally like, trailer park grubbery. But Phyllis is not from money. She's clearly, that's why she thinks that wig looks good on her, And he's got this incredibly empty apartment. He's just staring at the walls and drinking booze and, it's even before TV, I guess, before they had him in the homes. So I think there's something about that is not only appealing because it doesn't feel super Hollywood, but I think it's saying something about America. And I think it's saying something about the America that maybe had always been there, but maybe was on its way. A little bit of a portent of the world to come. So for me, I'm going to give it a 3.5 star. I'm just going to hold up the banner for this one. I agree that Sunset Boulevard is the more rewatchable Billy Wilder movie. And if you can handle the cynicism, Ace in the Hole, pretty amazing. But in any case, our average comes out to a 3. And I don't think that's unfair. It's my understanding that Double Indemnity has just become available to stream for free with a Prime Video subscription. It often shows up on TCM and the Criterion channel. You can rent it on Apple TV, Prime, Fandango, or there is a 4K and Blu-ray that you can purchase from Criterion, which has a bunch of extra fun features. You can find Film Generations wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and if you like our show, please tell your friends, rate and review it so that others can find us as well. I would like to thank our panelists, returning champion Olive Goldberg, Sonia Howe here for the second time, newcomer Brennan Guntang, and of course our co-host and producer, David Tauzik. Film Generations is an Electrocast production, and our executive producers are myself, Mark Netter, and Peter Rafelson. Our editor is Sonia Howe. On our next episode, we turn up the temperature with another noir tale of murderous co-conspirators and lust. But this one is 27 years later and all the way across the country in sweltering Florida, where the nights are steamier and deadlier than the days. In dark and burning color, it's William Hurt and Kathleen Turner with Ted Danson and a young Mickey Rourke in writer-director Lawrence Kasdan's directorial debut, Body Heat. Will this movie raise the temperatures of our panel of young film lovers, or will they give it the cold shower? Come back for the shocking revelation on our next episode of Film Generations.
Electrocast. It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number, 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number, save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.
Why is it that games make us feel so good or completely rage quit? These emotions we feel are mostly not an accident. People like me designed them. I'm Chris Cross, and this is Brain Arcade, a podcast all about the psychology of game design and why games hit us so hard. Each week, I bring on a new guest, designers, psychologists, storytellers, to break it all down with me. If you play, design, or just love games, follow now.
Electrocast.